All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another week of Stage Door Medium. I hope this video or audio finds you well. I have such a special guest today. I cannot stop laughing when I'm in their presence. They're sheer joy. They're so incredibly talented. They're funny. I was just saying, I never have wanted to reach through the screen more and just hug somebody for like an hour. Please help me in welcoming Josh Lamon to our show today. Yay!
Hi, Jimmy. Thank you for having me. I'm obsessed with you.
I'm obsessed with you. Hi, Josh. First, I always love to start with just how are you? How are you handling the pandemic? How are things?
You know what? I'm okay. You might even pick up on one of my cats purring right
Oh,
now by my microphone.
so
I'm
sweet.
doing okay. My cats have been a major force and just like love because I live alone,
Mhm.
and so that's been helpful. Oh wait, no, you're not. You're not going to climb up on the computer, kitty. Hi. Mwah. Um, but a lot of this has been day by day, which I think is for everyone,
Yeah,
you know, especially in the beginning when it's like you wake up very Groundhog Day and you look outside and it's like, I guess I'll sit on the couch again.
I know. And it's so funny that you use the expression day by day. I just started using that as my mantra since the podcast took off. Um, the readings have been really busy. Like I'm booked into going into almost April, and like it's overwhelming for me. I'm very excited and I'm grateful, but it's also there's this weird pressure that goes on me, and I just have to keep going, just one day at a time. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
one day, and then we'll get
In
through
one
the next
reading, in
day.
one person, but you deal with people's energies and
Yeah.
that's also exhausting.
Yeah, I mean, I had a reading today before we hopped on the call, and you have to learn how to compartmentalize it and go, okay, we're done with this part of the day, and we're moving on. And
Yeah.
so, well, if you're listening at home, Josh has these incredible credits to his name, so they're probably not going to be in order. What I had, so most recently, you were in the Prom on Broadway, which I've seen so a couple times, and I was crushed that it closed. Finding Neverland, Groundhog Day, Hair, Into the Woods at the park, with there's this great shot of like Amy Adams like in your crotch.
I
It's
know.
with God, Amy Adams, Donna Murphy was in that production. You were a Bach in Wicked.
Yeah.
So many, and then gosh, you have your own podcast that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk all about Miss JB Fletcher in a little bit. So I guess if we could start, did you always have the bug? Like, were you always theatrical? Did you know the arts was going to be this avenue for you?
Yes. My parents can attest to that. Ever since I was maybe like 3 or 4, I knew that I wanted to do this. It all started with San Diego Junior Theater and the Muppets. Um, like the Muppets, I would put on my sister's old like dance competition outfits and force my family to watch like me in front of the TV performing along with the
Yeah.
Muppets. Um, yeah, it was all that I ever wanted to do.
Muppet Babies for me growing up. Was it what was the one where you never saw Nana? Was that Muppet
Oh, that was
Babies?
Muppet Babies.
Like
Muppet Babies,
that's the
we're
big
making a
question I
dream
have. Like
come
when I
true.
die one day and get to have, like, what did Nana look like? Like that's like going to be one of the first questions I ask. Like other than those striped socks, I remember that. Um,
Yeah, the striped
the
socks. She's
socks.
Nessa Rose.
Maybe that's who it
Nana is
is.
frickin' Nessa Rose.
Was there a show that you saw growing up? Is in addition to like with the Muppets, like was there a musical that you saw that you felt like you got the bug after watching
I
that?
wish I could pinpoint one show, but my mom took me to see plays at San Diego Junior Theater
Mm-hmm.
in the early 80s. We had season tickets, front row center seats. And my mom said that, like, she would sit me down, and as soon as the show started, I was captivated from start to finish. For like, I would be able to pick up the songs in my head. And on the way to the car, I'd just be like belting out the songs.
Yeah.
Um, so they knew that I had like a weird ear for music. And yeah, so it wasn't just one specific show, but then there were so many other moments throughout my life when PBS aired Into the Woods. Um, that was huge for me because I remember my family going to go see it at the Old Globe, and I was too
Yes.
young. I had a babysitter, so I didn't get to go. But then they're like, "This is what we saw," though I only watched Act One for years, thinking that that was the end of the play.
Yeah.
And then one day I let the VCR keep going, and then I was like, "Oh no, everybody dies." Okay,
I've
great.
seen productions where at intermission people just leave, like they don't come back because they think, well, that was a great show, and I'm like, don't you? They didn't take bows. Don't you think something's a little funny?
They said to be continued. And any, people, everybody can do Into the Woods, and it's going to be brilliant. But that original company,
Mhm.
you can't take away what they did.
No, I know. I was just somebody had a clip of Joanna Gleason last night on their Instagram story, and I was watching it. I'm like, oh, she's so good.
Whenever I would get to meet those people when they came to Into the Woods, backstage at the Delacorte is very small. And we'd be doing the show outside on a 4-story set with where the stage is mulch
Yeah.
and it's like raining on you and raccoons are fighting. And it was like Survivor Sondheim. But of course, I would take a shower at the end of the show, and both times that Joanna was there and Bernadette was there, I walked out of the shower in a towel, like half naked, being like, "Oh, hi, really great to meet you," and they'd be like, "Hello, go put on clothes," you know.
Can I was that now were there any differences between that and the Regent production in London, or was it for the most part the same?
It was it was pretty much the same, except the costume design was different, and I believe they messed up the set because they did the exact same set that they had in London, but they didn't take the Delacorte stage dimensions into thought, I
Yeah.
guess. And so when we got to the theater, we realized that half the audience can't see anything. So we had to restage a lot of stuff.
How did your journey to Broadway come about? I mean, was it I know you hear so many different stories of like some people that made it easy. You know, they were there in New York for a couple of weeks and they booked a tour that turned into Broadway. And um, what was your experience like? Was there a lot of waiting?
Well, I slept my way to the top,
Yeah,
Jimmy.
net.
Um, I wish I'm having a going out of business sale over here. It was long. I started my career in Philadelphia and doing a ton of regional theater. And then when I booked Wicked, I think I was 25 or 26. And then after Wicked, there was, 3 to 4 years where I was working regionally and I couldn't get a Broadway job to save my life. And then Hair came around. I basically said no to the audition because I was like, I'm fat, I'm balding, I'm not a sexy hippie, I'm not wasting anyone's time, especially my own. And they were like, please just go in, just go in. So I went
Mhm.
in, I sang the angriest version of Joni Mitchell's River because I was so annoyed that I was
You were
there.
there.
So it's just like, I wish I had a river so long. And they were like, that was great. Can you come back and do this?
You're like,
And the final callback, there was about 50 people. And it was a hippie dance off. One guy broke his knee, God bless him. It was really intense. And I left that audition thinking that I didn't get it. And I just felt sort of done. I was doing children's theater in New Jersey at the time. It was winter. I hate winter.
same
And
here.
I called my former agent and I said, I don't think I want to do this anymore. I'm done. I just can't do this anymore. And he called back the next day and he said, I'm really sorry that you're feeling this way. But hang in a little bit longer because they want you to do Hair on Broadway. And my life changed. I've been very lucky. especially with hair. I started as a swing, and then in 6 months, I took over for a role. And
Hmm.
6 months after that, I took over for a different part. And that was really thrilling to me. I'm always going to feel very indebted to Diane Paulus, and I I just think the world of her. I love her,
Hmm.
and we've gotten to work together past, in other things as well. And it's it was a really remarkable thing when you're so used to being told no and wondering what it's like to get that call, wondering what it's like to work with a director like Diane or anyone, outside of my bubble. It just seemed so impossible. And yeah, I feel like I got very fortunate with that.
That's awesome. Flash forward to the prom. What was that experience like being in it? Because as an audience member, I think the last time I remember being in a theater that felt like it reverberated with that much joy was probably like Mamma Mia back in like 2004 or some. Just in terms of the energy. Um, can you talk about like how did that show come about? What was it like being a part of it nightly?
Oh my god, it was heaven. It was one of the best experiences of my life. And I remember during the very first reading of the show, just listening to it, being obsessed with it, and praying that I would get to go with it, because readings, it's like, oh, you're no longer in it, or
Yeah.
we're doing a workshop, but not with you. Um, so I was very, very fortunate to see it to fruition. But when you're working with heroes like Brooks, Angie, Beth, Chris, Michael Potts, like these legendary people, um, it's thrilling, especially because we loved each other so much. And that is rare to have a job, have a Broadway job, have the show be something that you truly love, and have the cast be people that you truly love. It's rare to have that kind of camaraderie. And, being a part of it every night was just a dream come true. It was hilarious. It was poignant. It was sad. It was uplifting and joyous. And I'm a big girl, and people lifted me in the finale. What?
Yeah, 'cause
I
when
mean,
you
come
come out,
on.
yeah, that show was. First off, I would love to do a reading for Mrs. Green. Like if she were a real, I mean, I know there's tons of moms out there that are Mrs. Greens, but I remember despising her until that very last line about not wanting her kid to have a hard life, and then it threw a monkey wrench into it, and you're like, I can't hate her anymore.
Yeah.
And I remember, gosh, the end of Act One broke me up. Like I did not see that coming at all. Um,
And that's based on a true story. That's what inspired the entire piece.
I was reading about an interview with Jack Vertel, and he would, and because I know he had such a hand, correct, in, with the plot.
Yeah, yeah, he was a part of it, sure.
It was just incredible. Can I ask too, like, why do you think the show closed so early? Because when I saw it, I saw it three times, I believe. The audiences were so receptive and so joyful, and it just seemed like I don't know. What are your
Well,
thoughts?
I think a few reasons. I think the marketing was really difficult for the show because nobody knew what it was.
Hmm.
And there are so many things to it, like, there's a group of has-been celebrities, there's a town, there's a lesbian couple. There were so many elements that it was hard to really narrow it down into 30 seconds
Sure.
as to why somebody should come and buy a ticket. Um, so there was that. And you know what? Broadway's hard. It's all the tourist dollar.
Hmm.
And if you can't get the tourists to come, that is going to limit how long you have a job. And in a tourist market, everybody's like, "Oh my god, have you seen Wicked? I saw The Phantom. I saw Hottie's Town. It was incredible." You know, um,
Yeah.
so it's hard. It's also Broadway, especially since Hamilton. If you're not making a ridiculous amount of money out the gate, it's going to be a really hard time for you. And with Prom, it pretty much came down to, if we win the Tony, we will run.
Hmm.
If we lose the Tony, we gonna close.
Yeah.
So that's sort of what I think happened. But I will say the producing team, the co-producers, nobody fought for this show like I've never seen that kind of dedication to a show before.
I think even despite its, shorter run, it's still a show that's just branded up here. And I think people will be talking about this for quite some time. And, I sadly, I don't think we're in a spot yet where the plot line will feel irrelevant for quite some time. You know what I mean? Because it's still happening.
Well, what's funny is that all of us New Yorkers were like, yeah, I hope this is relevant because, but then after the Thanksgiving Day parade, which was the first same sex kiss on the parade, I tweeted about it, and like every news company in America or whatever took my tweet and started talking about it. And then every hate group in the world like came at me
Yep.
and other people in the show. And that's when it was very much like, oh, yeah, there's a lot of people that don't want Miss Emma to go to the prom.
Yeah.
So that made it all the more important to me. The whole idea of having an unruly heart and what that means, and that being gay doesn't define who I am, but it is just as important as my skin.
Mhm.
It's a part of me. It's a part of my DNA. It's a part of my foundation. And we live in times where you still have to choose to be proud of that.
Even before I, went public with the podcast, I mean, there definitely were folks that didn't know that I practiced as a medium. And it's always nerve wracking, this idea of, because for me, it felt like coming out again. And, I definitely say the same thing as, growing up gay. Like, I didn't choose to, yeah, yes, I choose to practice as a medium, but this is part of who I am, what I've been enabled to do. And, you can either ignore it and feel like you might go cuckoo from it, or you can use this to do good, channel your creativity and funnel it. And so there is always that moment of like, when you do share that I'm a medium, you never really know how people are going to react. Because again, we're going down to, just like with somebody's sexuality, we're going down to somebody's religious, ideals, or what they, what they subscribe in, or like, well, same thing as, as being gay. You always hold your breath when you give that, explanation.
Absolutely. And I can
Always.
imagine, like, especially in your shoes, like, oh, you're a medium? Then what am I thinking right now?
Oh,
Like just idiots.
oh,
But I
absolutely.
will say my reading with you was so incredible and so beautiful. And I'm not a skeptic, but I'm very agnostic
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
with everything spiritually or whatever. I'm like, I don't know what it is. I don't know if there's anything. There could be nothing. There could be everything. I don't know.
I always say too, go in cautious. You know what I mean? Go in with an open mind, an open heart, but I always say do not come in gullible. Do not overshare, because there are mediums, I've seen it, that will go, I have somebody here who stopped breathing. Like, no shit, everyone stops breathing. That's how we die. You know what I mean? And recently I watched one on TV, and my husband's in the corner laughing right now. We're watching this one, and um it was a gallery reading where there's many people, and the medium's like, can I talk to you? And she was like, I've got somebody here, May. And the woman's like, I didn't know a May. She's like, oh, okay, well, she died in May. And I'm like, who? And the woman's like, no, I don't know anyone. I swear, like, we literally almost got to the point where she's like, oh, did you use the word may in a sentence earlier? Like, may I? I'm like, what is happening? Like, it was just like sheer awful guesswork. And so I always say, don't feed the medium. Don't tell us more than we need to know. You know, it's tricky being a fan of so, like, everyone that I interview. I am a fan of their work, or if I'm not, I will be. And it's tricky because I can't look up somebody's work to be like, what show did they do before this? Because with my luck, like an obituary will pop up or something, like the weirdest article, and I can't know any of that going in because it takes away the authenticity. You know what I mean? Of the
Yeah.
experience. I don't want to
Yeah.
know that. That's part of my job. That's the fun of the job, is like, yes, I can prepare with meditation and whatnot, but it's almost thrilling and freeing in a way to go, I can't come in prepared. Like, I can come in prepared as like how I practice, but I'm going into the dark, and there's something so freeing about that every day.
You know, I walked into the reading not knowing what to think or what to expect. And it was really therapeutic and beautiful. And you have a real incredible gift. And I'm glad that you're opening up that
Thank
gift
you.
to the universe, because it is very therapeutic and helpful.
Is there? I mean, and I guess going in, I guess we can go into it now. Yours was interesting because when you reached out to me, you reached out through Haley, and you know, if you're listening at home, Haley was our second guest. And long story short, Haley knows everyone. She literally knows every Broadway performer. And I think
She's the Duchess of Broadway.
she
It's
is,
true.
and she had recommended, you know, she had told you to, I guess, to get in touch. And I remember when I called you on the phone to set up a time, I was seeing a dead end symbol, and I was so excited to see it because as a medium, we create our own book of symbols. So if I see an apple, that might mean, oh, you're a teacher, versus somebody else, if they see an apple and they grew up on a farm, an apple might mean, oh, are you rural? Like, did you grow up? So we all develop our own. So for me, I've learned through practice. I have to tell them explicitly, I really like what this symbol was. Can you, for the future, give me this so I know this is what this means? And when I remember when I was speaking with you, I saw a dead end symbol, which is now my symbol for adoption, meaning that while we might know some of our adopted family, we might hit some dead ends, so to speak, in terms of we might not know all the answers. So I remember when I asked you, there's that pause on the phone. You're like, well, I am adopted. And I remember being so excited that this symbol, that I finally got it because, oh gosh, 8 months ago, I was reading somebody, and before they hopped on the call, I kept hearing, Dad wants to speak, but my gut was going, no, Dad is alive. And I'm like, I don't know what this means. And so he hops on the call, and I'm like, I have to start with a question. I'm like, I'm really sorry, but I'm like, is your dad deceased? Because every time I say it, I keep hearing the Family Feud, and he's like, it's interesting that you say that I'm adopted. So he's like, my biological father is deceased, but my adoptive father is still here. But yours, it was so beautiful because sometimes adoption, those that aren't, it can be confusing to do during a reading. Like I read somebody recently, and I think she was trying to play test the psychic, and she was withholding information. So again, I was like, I have your mom and your dad here. And she was like, oh, great. And she's like, I do want to let you know that I am adopted. I'm like, that's no problem. I was like, did you, how did she word it? She had mentioned that her adoptive parents were deceased, but her biological were alive. Long story short, she didn't tell me, she wasn't forthcoming about the fact that her adoptive parents were her grandparents, were her blood grandparents. So at one point, the cause of death that I got for her mom, I then heard grandma, and it was the exact same cause. And she was like, well, no, my grandmother didn't pass that way. So I left there so incredibly confused. I mean, I literally had to draw it out after she left to make sense of it. And I looked, and I'm like, no wonder. I'm like, the mom and the grandmother were the exact same person. So when I was giving this cause of death, I mean, she was like, no, that doesn't make sense. Her grandmother that she was referring to was her great grandmother. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it messed with me. So yours, when I saw that symbol, I was like, I'm going to go out on a limb here. But I guess, and I always like to ask, is there anything that you feel comfortable sharing from the reading about the experience?
Well, all of it. I mean, one thing that really struck out is, and I'm very open about this, I struggle with depression, anxiety, but especially depression. And this year, my depression has been out the roof. And though I do get help for it, you know, this year I went into a very, very, very dark place. And when right out of the blue, right out of the gate, you addressed it and you were like, I don't normally try to get this deep so quickly, but your family, they're so glad that you're still there and that you're doing, that you're working through it. Where there were moments this year where I was afraid of not being able to survive my own depression. Um so that really just sort of like opened the gates for me. Um and it really humanized the whole experience. And being able, my grandmother committed suicide when I was young. She was not well, it wasn't like she was having a bad day. She really was not well. She was bedridden. And I always wanted, I just always was like, how did she do this? Like, did she have help? Who helped her? And to be able to get that assurance that she didn't have help, that, this was how she was able to get away with it. And there's never been any anger at her or anybody really. She was in a lot of pain. And it's my belief that it's your choice, to free yourself from that pain in those situations. But and also just like the interesting things about, you mentioned, she wasn't a nice woman, and it's like, you're right, she was not
Yeah.
a nice woman.
Yeah.
um it was all very powerful. And especially, I don't talk about this very much anymore, but one of my best friends died when he was about 30, and it was very random and very sudden. And when you were like, okay, did you have a friend in the business that passed, that like went too soon, that did this, that, I was like, yeah.
And if I start getting them over five, it means I missed someone who's really important. And then I sensed a male energy, and that's when then I kept hearing in the biz, in the biz. So it's like, I have to talk about this. Um, no, yours was, and I always say too, I mean, your energy was so open and clear, and um, I don't know, I was just very grateful that I had the experience with you.
Jimmy,
It was
oh,
really nice. I left there
thanks.
just, I don't know. Um, I've been very fortunate with all of the Broadway artists that I've been able to speak with. They've been
Well,
nothing
we're
but beautiful.
fortunate too. We really are.
Well, that means a lot. When we were talking about comparing, I compare myself to mediums all the time, and it's not healthy, and it's something that I'm getting better at. Because you'll see mediums on TV that will get like a full name, and I'm like, how did they get that? I'm like, sometimes I'll get first names or I'll get initials. And so for me, I think there's a real danger in going like, well, they did it this way because everyone's is different. But with the prom, or I guess in any of your experience, I would love to talk about understudy, standby, going on for somebody else's track. Is there a danger like to compare yourself?
Yeah.
You went on.
Just like
Go
like
ahead.
everything in life, what I try to practice is compare and despair. Because that's what it is. You compare yourself so you can feel despair. And now with prom, it was interesting because I was covering Brooks, and Brooks Ashmanskis might be the funniest, smartest actor alive. And there are things that Brooks does that are just so Brooks that it's funny when Brooks does it. It is not funny when I do it. Um, but what Brooks did is he gave me the perfect blueprint on who that character was and how to perform that character. And when I understudy, I memorize the blueprint. I respect the blueprint. When I go on the first few times, I am doing the blueprint until something within me goes, okay, now do it your way. Or
Sure.
like do the blueprint, but now we're going to put you into it. Um and I I don't know, maybe for the prom there was no way to compare it. I didn't want to compare it because Brooks is Brooks. This is his role that he created. I'm me, and I'm really proud of the fact that it goes so well when I go on. But just compare and despair, you know. I did have a hard time in hair when I would understudy and took over for Theo Stockman. Theo is lightning in a bottle. He is genius. And he is so, I don't know how to explain it. He is just so perfectly Theo Stockman that when I started going on for him, I was basically imitating him. And my stage manager had to come up and be like, Josh, don't try to be Theo. Just be you. Like, we don't want you to do Theo. We want you to do you. And that was freeing to me because there's a fear of I have to be just like them. I have to sound like them. I have to imitate their every single move. Where part of what I think makes me hireable in this world of acting is that I am good at being myself. I'm weird, I'm quirky, I'm funny, and those are things nobody else can be like me and my quirks. Just like I can't be like them. So if they want them, that's because they want them and their quirks. If they want me and my quirks. It's not personal. It is just, I want that quirk or I want this one. And so I've been able to take that into my work. It's harder in audition situations for me than it is in understudy situations because I'll
Sure.
be like, oh, I see Fatty over there and he's funny, and oh god, now there's that Fatty and he's brilliant, and I'm over here and I'm just like this. I wish I could be funny like that one. It doesn't serve us. So I
Thank you.
practice compare and despair and letting it the hell go.
I know. I've been a lot better about it too, and I have to keep reminding myself. The universe values our authenticity and our bravery, and no matter what we believe, I feel like the universe will, you know, pays it forward when we are our most authentic self. And I will
Yeah.
say, I mean, you brought up a great point. I mean, there were definitely things that Brooks did that I still remember. Like I remember when they mentioned like that they don't have like a sax, that they have a Kmart, and he's like, okay. Okay. And he just kept saying okay. And like how he had the audience laughing for like a minute just by saying the word okay. But I will say I was fortunate where I saw both of you. I was there for a conference and I saw you as Barry, and it was the most joyful. I mean, I don't know, to see you do Barry's Going to Prom was the most joyful experience. And then, to see you, gosh, that twirl, that during the dance break, and your own choices. I mean, I love that the key was higher for you. I know they raised it, correct?
Yeah.
Because I have perfect pitch, fun fact. So
Do you really?
I do. I had a hearing impairment growing up, and I didn't realize that it was kind of like a rarity to have. And I remember sitting there and I'm going, oh, that's a different key. I'm like, oh, they raised it for Josh. So, no, they both were beautiful. And that's when I think I have to step back as a medium and go, okay, like, that's great. You can go to another medium and have an equally valid and beautiful experience. And like, we're all going to
Yeah.
do it a little different. And, I guess a couple other things too. Do you find that it's harder as an artist to stay relevant would it be possible to stay relevant in 2021 without social media as an artist?
Oh God. I mean, yes, there are so many artists that don't have social media, but you know, ugh,
But
I
did
don't
they
know. I
establish themselves before they needed it? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, or they're just lucky unicorns. Like
sure.
uh my love, my Jessie Mueller, she doesn't have any social media
Mhm.
and she never did. And that's just okay for her.
Yeah.
Whereas you go into a show now and the marketing team is like, what do you mean you don't have a TikTok? And it's like, I would rather bathe my mother than have a TikTok. And she's been dead for 70 years. It's like,
Sure.
and now this whole clubhouse thing, I just want to shoot myself. I can't. I can't.
I know.
One social media is one too many. And uh,
I know.
unfortunately, I do think it is important, though. It is. You have to put yourself out there, and you love it or you hate it.
I was talking with some alphabas about it, and they were saying like how it's crazy how some of these alphabas are more underground alphabas or Glindas because they were pre-social media, and how they're like, oh, it's the older alphaba. She's newer to Instagram or something like that versus somebody that's currently like I just had Hannah Corneau's episode, and I mean that show is a social media vehicle. I mean, gosh almighty, not that you abuse it, but I mean naturally you have these fans that are so heavily social media that want to follow you. They want to learn all about your adventures. I mean, I think of Jessica Vosk, how we all kind of felt like we were backstage with Jessica because of her social media and
Well,
Wicked.
Jessica created an empire
Yes, she
with
did.
with her social media. Wicked, that whole company, they're like, you are not the star. The show is the star. Congratulations at your alphaba. You won't be in 3 months.
Yeah.
So you are not allowed to post. You are not allowed to do this. You are not allowed to do that. Um, because they want the show to be the star.
Mhm.
And they, I feel, purposefully hire performers now that aren't necessarily established like a Stephanie Block was.
Sure.
Where they can get away with saying that to a lesser known performer that's being paid way less than the alphabas used to be paid because they're like, the star of the show is Wicked, much like Phantom is like, the star of the show is the
Phantom.
show.
Yeah. The boat, the
Um,
chandelier.
yeah, but at least Phantom lets you take pictures backstage, whereas Wicked, I think, is just they take it to a new level.
Sure.
But that's just me.
I mean, I know I feel the pressure. I mean, with just starting I'm like, oh, it's interesting. Like I'm like, what time of day? I'm like Googling things that I never Googled before. I'm like, what time of day is the best time of day to do a post? And like, how
Right?
much is too much? And it's funny. Like I notice like, some of the Broadway artists sometimes they're like, well, I have to do this tomorrow because I already posted twice today. And that's a lot. And I'm like, there's rules. I'm like, what the frig? I'm like, I didn't, it's interesting. I see the drawbacks and I see the benefits of social media, and I don't know. I only have one platform with stage or medium. It's just Instagram. Somebody was like, "Well, are you going to do Facebook?" And I'm like, "Nope." I'm like, "That's a different beast right now. Very different audience. Very different right now. I'm just focusing here on Instagram. So
Yeah, just focus on
just
Instagram.
Instagram. You know.
Oy, oy, oy.
Well, I want to talk to you also about because this is I'm obsessed with this that you did this. We have to talk about Bloody Bloody Jessica Fletcher. Like, where did you
Yeah,
get? So first off, did you grow up watching the show, or was this
I
later in
did.
life?
Oh no, I absolutely did. I mean, you and I are close to the same age, I
I,
think, or
I
maybe
am
you're younger.
33.
Okay, so you're younger, but still in that same cusp of age where it was airing.
Yeah,
Back in the day, there was like what, 4 or 5 channels. Murder She Wrote for 12 years was the show to watch on Sunday nights because there were no other shows to watch,
yeah,
and it was huge. It was gigantic. So it was a huge part of my childhood. I love it. And then I was doing a workshop with Kevin Zach, who co-wrote it with me. One of the, one of the people that co-wrote it with me. And Kevin started joking around and saying, like, what if we do a show called Bloody Bloody Angela Lansbury? And I fell out of my chair, and I literally was like, okay, we're writing it. We're writing it. And I went to Jen Tepper, who was running 54 Below, and I said, hey, yeah, so my friend and I are writing a musical. Can we have a night at 54 and just do the music and a concert version? She was like, yeah, gave me a date. And I went to Kevin and I said, we have 3 months to write a musical. And literally, like, that's how it happened. My a very dear friend of mine, I was over at her place, and her husband is a composer, Keith Varney, and I started, like, just singing what I want the opening song to be as, like, like, that's what happens in Cabot Cove,
Well, you're poor
very
Linda,
like
poor
Sesame Street.
Linda.
Yeah, poor Linda. And he went over to his piano and he started playing it. And then I was like, do you want to write the music and lyrics? You have 3 months.
Yeah.
And he said yes. And then Philip Taratula came on board. And of course, after Bloody Bloody Angela Lansbury happened, her Bloody Bloody lawyers contacted us and were like,
Of course they did.
you are not allowed to use her name. And so we said, okay. And then it just sort of took off. We kept writing it, we kept workshopping it. And the last, we raised a lot of money trying to get people to buy the show, to produce it. And we threw this really beautiful workshop of it. And we wined and dined all these people, and my mother was there. And my mother walked up. She's so not like me. She can just walk up and talk to people. I am not that way at all.
Sure.
And she walked up to these two people and said, hi, what brings you here? And they're like, well, we're producers and we're, and she was like, my son did this, like, wrote the show. May I have your card? And sure enough, those are the people. It was Hal Luftig's office. It's Hal Luftig, Sherry Wright, and Craig Hafner that optioned it. And it, how funny is that?
So your mom intervened, and
My mom got us Broadway producers.
my mom is trying to be like a little momager right now for me, and like she's very sweet. She'll share things, but like she's like, I just have a giveaway going right now, and she's like, well, can you show me how to share the post? So I give her the link, and then what does she do? She shares this like ratchet ass screenshot of it that's all pixelated and shows who liked it. I'm like, you literally just took what I gave you, and you're like, you know what? I'm not going to use it. I'm going to do it my way. But I'll be damned though, when she started promoting it, like all of these people started coming over. So I'm like, all right, mom. I'm like, you've got, she definitely has some like agency, big agent tendencies. So do you have a favorite?
Thank God that she's good at that, because imagine if she was terrible and started going to nursing homes and being like, you can talk to the dead. Imagine that. Like, Moira, you want to talk to Irving? My son, thank goodness. But you were going to say something.
Do you have a favorite Murder, She Wrote episode? Because I want to compare. I have one. I want to see what you say.
I don't really have one, because I've had to go back and watch them all. And to be honest, it's sort of a dumb show. Like, it's brilliant, but it's also just like, they didn't really have much competition.
Sure.
So I like all of the guest appearances. I like things about the show. I like that she has like 7,000 nieces and nephews.
Yes. They're always like, Aunt Jess. And then there's another one that always gets implicated in the murder, and Aunt Jess has to free them.
Yeah. Or like when Aunt Jess would go in disguise, she would disguise herself as...
Do you remember the one where she has the spiky red hair, and she's got the cigarette and the high-waisted jeans that are like up here, and she's like Augie, and she's smoking.
Yeah.
It just, I think my favorite is the 2-part episode with, remember, with Eudora McVeigh, who like poisons her, or they think it's her. Um, the guest appearances are, I mean, gosh, Rue McClanahan. I love the one with was it Adrienne Barbeau when JB gets
Yeah.
locked up in jail.
They would also repeat their guest stars, like
Yes,
Sandy Duncan, or not. Just as an example would be like, oh, I'm a lawyer in this episode, and then like I'm a gardener in this episode. You
same with
know,
Lorna Luft. Lorna Luft was like on 3 or 2 different episodes as different people, and yeah,
yeah,
it's and I think my favorite was that like there are times where I'm just like, was Angela Lansbury, oops, just like bored. Was Angela Lansbury just like, I need something to do, and I'm gonna do this show, and then like just the like the self promotion. She's like, I know you all know me from musical theater, so today I'm not only gonna be JB, but I'm gonna be my British cousin who sings in a vaudeville circuit. You know what? And I'm gonna show you my
yeah.
British accent and just
Well, she had rules. There was never they were never allowed to do a car chase scene
yes, I
because she
saw
didn't like
that.
doing them.
Yeah.
Um, and then of course, as the seasons went on, an episode would start with her being like, "Oh, I'm JB Fletcher. I remember this time when my dear friend solved a case in London." And then the whole episode would be without Angela Lansbury, just some random guest star solving a murder somewhere.
Because then by that point, she was making her personal moves tape. Remember that, where she's like in the tub massaging her legs? Have you?
Yeah.
I mean, where she called it massage. And I mean, I have searched high and low for that VHS with the poster on eBay. And until it comes down in price, it's a no-go for me. But now you need to work on a Facts of Life one for me, please, because Facts of Life is my jam.
Done.
I watch that like a current show. So
You take the good, you take the bad, you take them all,
Mrs.
and there you
Garrett.
have the facts of life. I love Mindy Cohn.
She's the best. Last question I have for you. Tell us a little bit about your podcast, about Josh Swallow's Broadway.
Oh, it's fun. It's vulgar.
It is fun and vulgar.
It's basically you know, I have a lot of really lovely, funny friends, and I like to talk to them. I like to find out about their life. As we're on season 2 now, I'm talking to more people that I don't know, which has been very interesting. But I like talking about the reality of the business,
Mhm.
and also just our lives. Our lives are interesting and dreadful enough that it's entertaining.
Yeah.
Um, so that's sort of where Josh Swallow's Broadway comes in. And we've had a lot of fun. I love surprising our guests. I did an episode featuring the class of 2020, as they graduated into a pandemic rather than like, oh, I'm going to go audition.
Yeah.
And so I surprised them all with Kristen Chenoweth to just lift them up and give
It's
them some
incredible.
love and advice. And I love doing that stuff. Or like the Christian Borle episode. This is when we were still at the recording studio, so I could do this shit. But his get ready song for like going to work or getting ready to go on stage is that song from Moana, that like, I am here in the ground and I know
Oh,
when
that
around and I
one.
know and there I go. And so I found a Moana impersonator to dress up like Moana and hide in a closet until I could lead him to that point of the interview. And then I had Moana pop out of the closet and serenade him. And, it's just fun and silly and super vulgar. And I hope you can get it wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes, I will put the link up. It's joyful. I took a day trip to Rochester, which is about an hour and a half away, if that, and I listened to a couple there and back, and just great. So,
Thanks.
um, if you were stuck as a ghost in a theater for all of eternity and could only watch the same musical over and over, what would you pick?
Oh, that would be dreadful. That would be so dreadful. A short one, Joseph.
Joseph. Oh,
90 minutes, no intermission, short.
do you have a particular cast though? At least.
I need a fierce narrator
Yes.
and some some fierce brothers of all shapes and sizes and
Perfect.
colors.
Maybe the newest version that they did with Jessica Vosk and Eden and
Yeah, I can handle that. As long as it's short.
perfect. A short
You
music.
know, I would not want to see anything over and over again. That's just not who I am.
Fair
Then I
enough.
start seeing like the holes in it.
Yeah.
Like I was a huge rent head until the 14th time I saw it.
What did you start to
And
notice?
well, what did I start to notice? I was like, wait a minute. Roger's trying to get sober. He's really depressed about his girlfriend killing himself and giving him AIDS.
Yeah.
And Mimi just broke into his apartment with heroin and is saying, let's go party. And he says, how dare you break into my home with heroin? Get out. And he's the asshole.
I know.
No day but today. Like, and he's the jerk. Stuff like that, where I was like, wait a minute. And also, I was like, wait a minute. Everybody has to pay rent. Everybody does. It sucks. I'm with you. It's terrible. But Benny somehow got it together to buy a building. And he's the asshole for wanting you to pay to live there?
Yeah,
I
they
was like,
definitely
this
vilify
doesn't
him.
add up.
They definitely vilify Benny for literally just being a landlord.
For being for having a job, that each and every one of us would kill to have. Who yeah, I'll own a building in New York, and yes, you're gonna pay to live there.
This is why I'm so grateful that you're here. These are the things that I will forever think about now when I watch Rent. Is there a character?
I mean, it's a good thing I wasn't on the team, because I'd be like, Jonathan, she's trying to get a guy who's trying to get sober from heroin. Like, no. Anyway,
I did the show in college, and there were definitely spots where you're like, you do start to.
Angel killed a dog.
Yeah, I know, and we just
Angel
gloss over
murdered
it. We
a dog.
laugh because we're like, oh, there's a drum solo coming up, so let's forget about that. I'm like,
no, and not like a mean dog, not a dog that like killed a nun, a good dog.
a good dog.
And she threw it off of a building, like,
I know.
and these are our heroes.
I know.
Anyway, today for you, tomorrow for murdering a dog.
Maybe JB Fletcher could come in and solve some of those murders from.
Yeah, who murdered the fucking dog? Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear.
You're
but,
fine.
I mean, where was PETA when Rent happened?
Where was what?
PETA.
Oh, I know. Seriously.
They were rather quiet. Anyway.
Is there a character that you've played that you think would benefit most from a medium?
Sorry, I'm going back in my mind of all the characters I've played. I'm going through the movie in my mind of my career, my long, beautiful career. Yeah, Margaret Mead and Hair. I think Margaret would have loved to have a medium.
And I feel like anyone in Hair would have been so receptive to it for the time. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like
absolutely.
so open to having a reading and energy and energy work, and good choice.
Yeah, I mean, every character I played, I think, needs some damn energy work, but I don't know who would benefit from it the most.
Yeah, I think Barry actually could benefit from one too in the Prom. I think Barry could benefit some, could use some advice.
Yeah, sure.
Just that external validation. And then finally, if you could go back and originate a character that was kind of like a star-making turn for somebody on Broadway, if you could take their job from them.
Oh God, that's so mean. But probably Barry Glickman. If Brooks didn't exist, I would want to play it. I would have wanted to originate it.
It's a good part, and you were beautiful in it. So,
thanks, babe.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being my guest today, and I will put up your information. I will put up the podcast link so everyone can go check out Josh Swallows Broadway. They're the most hysterical episodes. Like, you will not want them to end. So thank you again for coming, and I hope you're well. And next time I am in New York and it's safe to meet, I will be there, and I won't have to hug you through the screen. I will bear hug you in person, and it will be safe.
I can't wait.
And lovely.
I can't wait.
Thank you again. Be well, and
love you.
I love you, and I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.